You have the stock market in like a mania, a high on some kind of Fed monetary crack cocaine. That's the stock market. You have Washington distracted with scandals, and therefore another couple years are burned up. Meanwhile, we're adding to the national debt.
Boy, that was fun, right? So many scandals, so little time, leaving apparently no time for Washington to address our budget or all of this spending. Instead, choosing to focus on unexpected good news, on more revenues coming in and smaller deficits coming out. Well, you heard Ronald Reagan's budget director bemoaning the fact that we're taking our eye off this exploding debt to Celia Bigelow and Alexander Acker-Lyons and Phil Kerpen on whether they agree. Celia, what do you make of that?
I do have to agree to some extent. While I wouldn't say that these scandals are a distraction, or I'm not trying to downplay these scandals, but the fact is that we should be paying equal attention to the national debt and the out-of-control spending that's going on in this country as we are to these scandals. And I say that because the Government Accountability Office came out with their annual audit of the federal government earlier this year, and they said that the fiscal path that we're on is unsustainable and that it is an immediate threat right now. The fact is that interest payments alone in my lifetime are going to be the major driver of our national debt. And meanwhile, we have the president saying we don't have a spending problem, we have a revenue problem or a health care problem. And to me, that alone is a scandal.
Well, I will say this, Phil Kerpen, and one of the things that concerns me is that Washington cannot multitask. Now, if you want to have these hearings and these investigations, certainly have at it. There's a lot of questions here, a lot of abuses, certainly at the IRS here. But we do have this debt, and we do have, even though the news is improving on the short-term deficits, you know, maybe it says something about our times that we could celebrate a $682 billion deficit. But I remember when it cracked $100 billion with Ronald Reagan, it was the end of the world. But that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying, I think we can do all of this, but we're forgetting about this, and that worries me. What say you?
Well, look, I do think we should celebrate a little bit to the extent that we had a record peacetime deficit in 2009, over 25% of GDP, through the tremendous efforts of a public that's been engaged on the spending issue like I've never seen before. We've been able to bring that down considerably. It's going to be around 22% of GDP this year.
Well, do you think our eye's going to be off the ball now?
Well, I think, Neil, fortunately, the big spending fight is not going to be in the summer now. It's going to be in the fall because the improvement in the fiscal outlook has pushed the debt ceiling into the fall. The debt ceiling is going to get all rolled together with the end of the fiscal year, and we're going to have a big fight over this in September. And I think the scandals may well inform that debate in a productive way because they show how there is a lack of control when you have this gigantic, out-of-control big government. Even David Axelrod said it's too vast for the White House to even know what's going on. And I think when the government is too vast for the White House to know what's going on, we've got to downsize it. And I hope that informs the spending debate that we're going to have in the fall.
All right, well, that worries me when anyone at the White House doesn't know what's going on, because that gets to be a theme of late. But, Alexander, in all seriousness, one of the things I want to get from you is a read I had from a friend of mine on Wall Street I was raising with a prior guest, and that is that there is a sense out there that at the very least, this stymies the president's agenda, which to some, not all of the financial community who are loath to government, even though government has helped them many, many a time, that's a good thing. And one of the reasons that's been propelling the market. What do you think of that this actually hurts the president's spending agenda and will actually help the economy as a result?
Well, I think all of these grandstanding hearings and a 37th vote on repealing Obamacare, it's all a distraction from focusing like a laser beam on the economy.
But you would hold hearings on the IRS thing, right? But you would hold hearings on the IRS. That seems to rattle a lot of folks, right?
Of course. But looking at the scandals as a whole, what is really happening here is, as you said, Washington can't multitask. And I'm worried that we're taking our eye off the economy just when the recovery is starting to pick up, when there are still millions of Americans who are hurting and really need Washington to be focusing on them.
Well, I think you can do everything. I don't want to sound flippant about it, but see, that gets back to the point. Assuming, and it's clear that Washington cannot, and it's going to be, let's say, sort of like a scandal, a pop in summer, where there are going to be multiple hearings, and I've gotten the read from both the congressmen and women and senators that will be the case. Whether it's the IRS, whether it's Benghazi, whether it's the Justice Department going after reporters, whether the HHS went too far, having these private companies pay for essentially publicizing health care law. That it could be a mess, and that is like Watergate summer light. Do you agree with that?
I definitely agree. I definitely think that Washington can multitask, but maybe President Obama's almost relieved that he doesn't have to talk about the economy right now and that he can just cover up or try to cover up what's happening in the White House right now, because it is taking focus off what is happening in the economy. And to be honest, while
he's been liking what's been happening in the economy because it's off the mat. It might not be off to the races, but it's off the mat.
But the fact is that the economy isn't doing much better. People are still leaving the workforce. While we can say that the unemployment rate has dropped, it is because there are thousands upon thousands of people still leaving the workforce every month that we can point to, and that does not point to an economy that is starting to thrive.
Phil, a real quick final read on just where this goes, these scandals go. Do you think these are going to be the sort of obsessing points, good or bad, for the summer?
Oh, yeah, I do. I mean, I think they're going to be where they have been, front and center. And even the HHS scandal with Secretary Sebelius calling CEOs for cash, that's kind of off the radar because we can't even deal with 4 scandals at once. We're just looking at the big 3. I think these are going to continue to dominate, and I think it's very important that people who think like I do, that we need to get government spending under control, and that ought to remain the focus, use this as a window on the problems of big government rather than making it about specific personalities and making it sensationalistic.
All right, guys, don't wander too far. We're going to have you back.